Yes guys, welcome back to another video here on the Andy#1 channel. It's Tuesday, which means it's another episode of Tuesday Talks, where I sit in my front room, my dining room, my work room, my daughter's playroom, and talk to someone in the game of football about how they became where they are today, about their experiences along the way. Today's guest on Tuesday Talks is Conor O'Keefe. Now Conor has got a really interesting story. He started with Macclesfield at the age of 12, went through the age groups, signed a professional contract and was a professional for a year at Macclesfield. Then he left Macclesfield and went to university. He went to Loughborough, so they did international business and economics at Loughborough. His university course then had a gap year in the middle where he had to go and study an industry placement. He went to Madrid. He went to Madrid to find a football club. So he contacted 48 clubs within an hour of Madrid to try and get himself a professional contract. He did in the third tier of Spanish football after training and doing pre-season with a team in the second tier, with La Liga 2, sorry. We're there. So he spent a year in Spain. He was part of a matchday squad which travelled to the Bernabeu to go play Real Madrid. He since came back to the UK, then finished off his university placement, then went to Gibraltar and played for a couple of clubs in Gibraltar. That was last season. He's now back in the UK and looking for a club. Conor's also a YouTuber where he's got his weekly vlog called Keeping Goals, and I thoroughly recommend that you go check that out. Right, let's get into our talk and let's see what Conor has to say. Now, normally we do these at 8 o'clock. Today it's 8:30.
Yeah, I'm sorry for making everyone wait.
Because you've been training today.
Yeah, well, I'll try and get in a little cheeky session on a Tuesday night, because I normally drag my brother out to train with me, and he works full time, so I can only get him in the evenings. So yeah, I'm sorry for making everyone wait on my behalf.
Because I obviously follow you on Instagram and Twitter, and also your YouTube page as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll mention later on at some point. And you were also training this morning as well. So you had a double session. Is it double session Tuesday?
a double session Tuesday. Yeah, well, I've tried to. For people that follow me on social media and YouTube and things, I've kind of tried to explain my training routine throughout lockdown, and something I've tried to do is cover 3 different areas with technical, physical, and mental training sessions. So between the 3 of them, I've got lots of different sessions that I do, and so most days I can get at least 1 or 2 sessions done. So yeah, today I was on a plyometric session this morning, and then a distribution session this evening. So it's been a nice varied day.
Nice. And then might as well have a little plug. You've got a plyometrics ebook that's out at the moment as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for promoting that as well, because you helped me out the other day with that. But yeah, plyometrics training is something that I've done for quite a long time, and I was very lucky when I was at Loughborough University to have access to a lot of kind of elite level, not only football coaches but athletics coaches as well, and I learned the importance of plyometrics for building sprint speed and jump height, and I kind of wanted to bring that to everyone else really, and share the knowledge that I'd picked up. So yeah, there's a link in my Instagram bio actually. If anyone is interested in a plyometrics program for training, there's an 8-week program there for you. So go and have a look.
Well, it's definitely something I'll be looking at, I'd say, because that's something that I struggle with, and I feel like I should get into this a little bit more and try and get a bit fit. So you're going to help me with that?
Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think.
I will. So anyway, how has lockdown been for you? Because you're in a very strange situation, I suppose. You entered lockdown and you were a professional footballer in Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. You've come back here, and now you're no longer a professional footballer in Gibraltar. Yes.
Well, it's been, I think for everyone, it's been a bit of an interesting time. For myself, I was playing in Gibraltar, like you say. I was on a professional contract over there. I was living in Spain because Gibraltar is a kind of small foreign territory of the UK, which is on the Spanish mainland. So I was living a little bit further up the coast in Spain, and Spain really got the brunt of it a little bit before we did. So it was starting to lock down in Spain, whilst here everything seemed still okay and open. But me and my girlfriend were fortunate to get flights home before everything got locked down in Spain, and we managed to get back home, which was good because over there we were in a tiny little flat. At least here we have a garden and things. But I don't think we expected it to go on quite as long as it has done. So unfortunately, the season in Gibraltar was cancelled. My contract was due to end at the end of this season anyway. So that's come to pass, which has kind of meant that I join quite a lot of footballers right now who may be finishing up contracts and not quite sure where they're going to be playing next season and when next season is going to be. So it's quite an uncertain time. But throughout lockdown, I've just tried to kind of maintain my training, keep trying to find new opportunities, and that's really been my focus, to make sure I'm ready for when the opportunity comes.
I mean, you've been in a similar-ish sort of situation before in terms of finding a new club, so that must set you up to. I'll wait for you to come back a little bit. You've got the wheel.
Sorry, Andy,
There we go. You're back. Yeah, saying you've been in a kind of a similar. You've been into a similar-ish situation before, I'm guessing, in terms of trying to find a new club. So that must put you in a little bit of a forward step compared to some people who might not have been in that situation before.
So
there you go. Are you back? You can hear me?
back. Sorry.
Fantastic. Right, I was just saying, so in terms of, you've been in a situation before where you've had to find a club, which we'll get into detail, I'm sure, in a bit. So do you think that experience has put you kind of one step ahead than other people that might be in this situation for the first time?
Yeah, I think I've been, throughout my career, as we'll probably go into detail, I've always done things quite an unusual way. I've had quite an unusual path throughout football, and part of that path has been almost acting as my own agent sometimes, and trying to find new clubs and find connections. And that's something that I'm doing again right now. And the first time you do it can be very anxious and worrying, but you get the hang of it and you get used to it. So it's always an uncertain time in the summer if you don't have something lined up. But it seems to be that if you work hard at it, something normally does come.
Right. So I generally give a little bit of an intro to people before we start in, and say that we're going to talk for about the next half an hour, which never seems to be about half an hour. It always seems to be about 45 minutes. Now, I love your story, and I could go into a lot of depth and a lot of time about what you've done and how you've gone through that. So be interested to see how long this actually takes and how many questions I fire at you, actually. But in terms of your journey and what you've done so far, is that you started off at Macclesfield at the age of 12. You went through to Macclesfield and you signed your first pro contract at the age of 19. You then took an unusual step for a professional footballer. You left the professional game and then went to university. You went to Loughborough, although is it the best sports university? Or at least,
I like to say so, yeah.
It's at least one of. I'm not sure what Bath say about that, but Bath and Loughborough are most probably the two best sports universities in the UK, where you were playing semi-professional for their team there, as well as university in the books, or booster, depending on how old you are, leagues at university. You're studying international business and economics as well. Yeah. Got a 2-1, and that seems like a pretty great feat in itself, alongside your football studies. And then from there, the course that you were studying had a year where it was an industry placement. So you decided to take yourself off to Spain and find a professional club in Spain. And that just sounds brilliant. I mean, the Guardian article that's been written by Sid Lowe about that is just brilliant. And we'll get into that. I won't drop anything just yet. But then, anyway, finished in Spain. You found yourself a club. Went to the Bernabeu. Part of the team played against Real Madrid. Back to Loughborough. Finished your course. And then decided to get off to Gibraltar. Yeah. And then you played for 2 clubs in Gibraltar last year, and that takes us up to date to where we are. That's one hell of a journey, because you're 24 now, aren't you? Yes, 24 now. That's a lot to get into, a 24-year-old, which has been a professional career. Well, Macclesfield. Did you finish Macclesfield at 19? Yeah, so I had 1 year then, so that was kind of 18 to 19 at Macclesfield as a pro. Right, and then 4 years at university. That's a hell of a lot that you've managed to get all in this short space of time. We're actually going to go back. Going to go back to that very start. When did you start playing in goal? I've played in goal as long as I can remember. My little brother's only about 18 months younger than me, and he was, well, still is, a centre forward winger. He liked to shoot and I liked to save, and that's been it for as long as I can remember, really. Wherever we were, we would play in the house, and then mum would kick us out, so we'd play in the garden, we'd play in the park, and we'd just spend hours with me trying to save and Sean trying to score, and that's been all that I can remember, really, as a kid. But so you're the older brother? Yeah. So that's different straight away, isn't it? Normally you get the older brother who wants to be a centre forward and shoves the younger brother in goal.
Yeah. I think I just enjoyed diving around in the mud. I mean, where I'm from, Macclesfield in the northwest, it's notorious for being a very rainy place. We have a lot of rain all year round, and it was, as a result, very muddy. And I think I just really enjoyed diving around, jumping around in the mud, making saves. I think the feeling of making saves I enjoyed more than the feeling of scoring goals. I've had times when I was a kid playing outfield, and I loved that too, but something always pulled me back to playing in goal. And I think it's a feeling that goalkeepers understand but can't really explain. And that's something that I've always had, really.
So when did Macclesfield come calling? How did that come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were my local club, so I always did a lot of kind of football in the community events and school holidays and things like that they would run. I went to a big academy called Crewe Alexandra, who are a big club, and they've got a very good youth academy. And I was there when I was 10, but I ended up coming back to Macclesfield when I was 12. I think they were holding I think trials for the under 13s for the Centre of Excellence, because I think that was the first year.
So did you go through an official? Did you go through an official trial process with Macclesfield then?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was just because the under 13s was the first year of the Centre of Excellence, and they were just trying to get local kids to join. So I think they held lots of trials at different schools. They held one at my kind of local high school that I ended up going to, and that was where I went, and eventually kind of ended up in the system. But it was kind of something that I did, I think, year 7, year 8, and got involved from then.
And then you went all the way through with that. I'm assuming, because I was never in a system. I trialled for teams, but I never got in to a professional team. But I'm guessing that you go through those age groups and you lose friends along the way, but yet you're always in there. So how was that for you?
It was funny, because I think even when I think back when I was that age, I never was that kid that was like, I'm going to be a professional footballer. It wasn't a goal that I set. It wasn't really on my mind. I loved playing football, and I loved playing for Macclesfield. And I think I was kept in. So at each stage of the process, when they would let players go or keep players on, I carried on. And I think the further down the line I thought, actually, I've got a good chance here if I apply myself to it, and I've got an opportunity to do something that I love doing. But it wasn't that at 10, 11, 12, I was like, I'm going to be a footballer. I just kind of followed the process all the way through. And like you say, you do lose friends and you gain friends. And I think of lads that I was there all that time with and what they're doing now, and very few of them are playing football. So it is a difficult path, but I'm glad that I didn't fixate my perception of success on being good within that structure. I think it was just something that I enjoyed doing, and I was successful at, and carried on as long as I could. And thankfully that's taken me up to today.
So what sort of age were you then when you decided, right, this is what I'm going to do?
I still think I was quite late. I think, like, even at 16, when I got kept on for the youth team, that's then a big choice to make about whether you become basically full-time employee of the club as an apprentice. And even as I went into the youth team, I mean, we'll talk about that process, but I still didn't really think, right, this is what I want to do. I think I just really enjoyed it and kept going. But I think probably as I got to, it was probably quite late, but 17, 18, I thought, I'm doing really well. I'm still in this structure after so many people have been let go. And if I try and put my mind to it, then it might be something that I can create a career in.
I mean, you mentioned there in terms of the youth team, and I read somewhere that actually you didn't sign a contract at that age group. You were a 2-year trialist because that was the only way that you were able to do your A-levels.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like this, I wasn't one of these people that football was my whole life. I was very fortunate that I enjoyed school. I enjoyed studying. I enjoyed my work, and there was other things at school that I enjoyed doing, other sports, other activities. But when it came to 16 and they offered me a youth team scholarship, the process normally then is that you leave school at that age and you join the education program with the club. And at that point, Macclesfield were offering a BTEC in sports science. And a lot of my mates obviously did that BTEC, but I never wanted to study sports science. It wasn't a subject that I was interested in. I wanted to do my A-levels. And I was very fortunate in a way that Macclesfield was my local team. I trained in the town, but my school was also in the town. And I managed to come to an arrangement with the club and with my school where I would train in the mornings. I did every session, played every game, but then I would go back to school in the afternoon and the evenings, do extra classes and do my A-levels. And I ended up doing maths, English lit and business economics at A-level. And I loved those subjects too. But I had a lot of people tell me you won't be able to do the two. It'll be too difficult to combine. But I was very fortunate in the end that I kind of, with a lot of help from the club, my school, my parents, I got 2 A's and a B at my A-levels, but then was also offered a pro from the club. So I got the best of both, but it took a lot of hard graft, but it was an option that I really wanted to do because I knew the importance of education, but I enjoyed it too.
Because that's a difficult period in your life anyway.
Mm.
So then to go and juggle A-levels, and I mean, I did maths A-levels as well, and that was by far the hardest subject that I
agree.
studied.
I agree.
So, I mean, that must have been quite a pressure to put on yourself at quite a young age.
It was a lot of pressure. And I mean, it stood me in good stead because it's meant that from then on, I was very good at balancing a lot of work, and I was good at assigning my time and being very, very consistent with my work and good with my time planning. And even now that helps with things that I do away from football. It helped with my degree in my football. And so it's taught me some very important lessons, but it was a hard 2 years. I remember it being very difficult, but I did have a lot of help from outside people as well.
And then, so you signed a pro contract at Macclesfield.
Yeah.
So just talking about football and going back to that, what's the difference then in the step up between being a youth teamer and being a professional?
Well, I was quite fortunate that even as a youth team player, I was in and around the first team in training circumstances, not on a regular basis, but I had a lot of experience of joining in with training. But when you become part of the first team squad and you're not part of the youth team squad, it is obviously a step up. I went in as a third choice goalkeeper. I was the young lad, basically. The two ahead of me were very experienced goalkeepers. And kind of my role really was to be on form for every training session, to give my all in every training session, because it was very unlikely that I was going to play. I was on the bench a few times. I had some kind of local loan moves. It was brilliant for me to train every day and learn off the first team squad, the first team keepers. But without having, I mean, Macclesfield didn't have a reserve team as such. And without having those regular youth team games, it was difficult from a games point of view because I wasn't playing very often. And I found it quite frustrating that first team managers wanted their keeper to be experienced, but then you're not getting game time as a young keeper, so you're not getting the experience. It was a bit of a catch-22. But I learned a lot from that year in terms of being in around first team players with professional experience every single day, and that was very valuable to me.
Yeah, who were the two keepers at the time then at Macclesfield?
The number one was a guy called Reece Taylor, who had been at Chelsea as a youngster all the way through, was a pro at Chelsea, was on the bench in the Champions League, and then played for all sorts. He'd played for Tranmere, played for Crewe, played for lots of football league clubs, just recently retired. And then the number two was a guy called Richie Brannigan, who'd been at Bury and Bolton, went on and played for Macclesfield, played for other non-league teams as well. So they were very experienced keepers, and it was a good keepers union, actually. We got on really well and we enjoyed working together.
So how did that come to an end then at Macclesfield?
Well, I think I was coming towards the end of that year and I was I knew that I wasn't really going to play in that first team. I felt like I'd done well enough to kind of put myself on level with the number two, but Reece was performing very well as a number one, and I didn't feel like I had the game experience to then challenge him in a sense. And I'd had these loan moves. I'd done well in loan moves, but I knew that I needed to play games as a young keeper if I was going to have any chance of creating a career, because that span between 18 and 21 is a bit of a no man's land for keepers. If you don't get games in and suddenly you're 22, 23 and you don't have any first team or men's football appearances, you can be overlooked by a lot of clubs. So I knew I had to go and play. I contacted loads of teams who had like under 23s teams to try and get in there. Didn't really get anything. This was probably the beginning of actually acting as my own agent almost. And I didn't really have many full-time options. I had some in non-league and things, but as a result of doing my A-levels, I'd had the offer from Loughborough to then go and study a degree there, and it was never something I wanted to do. I always wanted to stay in full-time football. But my mum and dad said, just go and have a look. They've got an open day for the football program. Go and see what's on offer. And once I went to Loughborough and saw the facilities in the football program, it quickly became kind of a strong opportunity for me, really.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that's come in and saying, you know, would you kind of, would you, not necessarily, I mean, would you advocate that path to other people? Because dropping out of full-time football in order to then go and study is a big career choice.
Yeah, it is.
It's a big decision to make. So, you know, it's obviously worked out all right for you today and one of the experiences that you had, but is this something that you would actively go out and tell, you know, do you know, this is an option for you, this is something going forward?
It is an option because, I mean, there's a lot of lads who have been to Loughborough that are now playing again in the Football League. So George Williams is the best example, who's now captain at MK Dons, had been let go by MK Dons, then went and did a full course at Loughborough, came out again, was re-signed as a pro at MK Dons and is now captain. So it is possible, but it is very difficult. And it's something which I kind of want to change further down my career in terms of how education is seen within sport in the UK. I look at America and there's a lot of things that the American system doesn't do right in terms of sport and education. But one thing it does do right is it pairs the two together and it gives people an opportunity. It gives people who are good at their sport the opportunity to also get an education that they never would have had otherwise. Whereas here, there's a strong push in the way of the fact that if you want to be a professional, you need to sacrifice your education. And in the same way, if you want to have a good education, you need to sacrifice your opportunity at being a professional. And I don't think that works. I think the skills that I have learned through education aid me with my football in terms of concentration, problem solving, relationships. All these things help me as a footballer and they're gained through my education. And I think it's something that should be worked on in a way. But the system as it is very difficult. Even now I look at lads who go to look at top players and they don't really then go on and create a career in the game. So it's difficult. It is possible, but it is difficult. But hopefully that pathway will change to make it easier.
Was America ever an option for you?
I never really wanted to go. A lot of lads did, even after their degree, to then go and do a master's at a uni in America. And my aim was always to come back into professional football. And when I looked at America and lads who went to America, I saw very few that then went on to the MLS or onto the USL and performed at a professional level. And I just thought I need to get back into full-time football. So staying within Europe was kind of always my focus to begin with. But I'd love to play in America in the future. But in terms of university, yeah, I didn't really look at it that seriously.
So you're at Loughborough now. You've come from a full-time training environment to what is potentially a similar sort of full-time-ish environment within university. I think your university experience at Loughborough is a lot different to my university experience that I had with some of the hashtag guys. And yet we actually played Loughborough seconds, but you're playing at the very, very top of university football from there. And you're also now playing semi-professional football at the same level that hashtag are playing now, which is step 5, isn't it? Step 5, level 9. Yeah. Level 8, level 9. Yeah. It's around there as well. So what's the differences, what are the similarities between your time at Macclesfield and your time at Loughborough in terms of the football?
The culture was very different. Macclesfield was quite an old school changing room. It had a lot of old school professionals. You go into Loughborough and the oldest player is 22, 23. So it's a very, very young squad. But it's lads who have been in, the majority of them is lads who have been in high level academies or even first team professional football and then gone on to choose to do an education through their choice or through injury or whatever. But I think going into Loughborough, I was surprised at the high level of the facilities. For those that don't know, Loughborough, it's obviously a very high level sporting university, but it's where British athletics are based, British swimming, England netball, England cricket. The level of the sporting facilities is unbelievable. And the football program benefits from that. As you said, it's run almost like a full-time club. You have S&C guys, psychologists, nutritionists, physios. You've got 5, 6, 7 members of technical staff. You've got a full squad of players that have played at an elite level, and they run it like a full-time club. You train every day, sometimes twice a day with gym work, pitch work, like you say, we were playing non-league, we were playing books games. So sometimes we were having 2-3 games a week. And back to my earlier point about wanting to play games as a young keeper, it was perfect for me. My first 2 years at Loughborough, I played 90 games. Like at Macclesfield, I would have been lucky to get a third of that. So it was great for me to get into men's football, to train full time, to also study for my degree, which I enjoyed doing. But in terms of physically, technically, tactically, I developed a lot more from going to Loughborough than I would have done if I'd have stayed at Macclesfield. That would be very different if I was at a club that was a Premier League club, Championship club, but Macclesfield was a Conference League 2 club. And almost for my football development, Loughborough was probably better. So it served me very well, really.
Yeah. How did you find university football versus non-league football? Because you're playing two totally different types of football, really. I mean, I've played at that level and I've played at university level below your university level, and it's not the same.
No, I mean, it's almost a microcosm of when they talk about under 23 football and league football. So obviously the level is below that, but the university games were on, especially at Loughborough, were on perfect pitches, like very tactical, sometimes slow, more of a chess match. And then you put us in the non-league side of things. And especially when we go away on a Tuesday night and it's raining and freezing cold, and you're going against these non-league teams with lads who are 30 plus, and they go, right, we're just going to smash the kids about and we're going to show them what men's football's like. Like it was really difficult, but then it's a learning curve for us as players, and you have to learn that. So the two sides of the university football were very different. And we had different years where we were successful at either, but we had very few years where we were successful at both at the same time. So it was a strange process, but one that taught us as players a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Loughborough, like you said, facilities are amazing, and the teams, whenever I've come up against them, have been quality. I mean, we actually played against each other when you were in your third year, didn't you, for hashtag? And that was a mishmash of a few different Loughborough teams, but you... Do you know what? I meant to watch it a little bit today as well, and I was trying to remember if I conceded. I can't remember. Are you back? Yeah, I can't remember if I conceded a goal. I know that Ryan did when he came on, but I can't remember if I did.
It was a close game.
I wasn't good. I didn't concede and you didn't concede.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Works out for both of us. Right, so you're at Loughborough now, and your course says, right, you've got a year here, go off and get an industry placement.
Mm-hmm. Your
industry placement, you've decided to get across to Madrid and try and find a football club in and around Madrid.
Yeah, it was.
Why?
I mean, it was a different process to that, even in the way, because my course, you had to do either a year in industry or you could study abroad. And the way I looked at it was like, if I was working full time, I'd find it very difficult to kind of maintain the level that I'd got to with my football. So I decided to look into the study abroad option. And I saw the connection that Loughborough had with the university in Madrid. I applied for that. I was accepted. And once I knew that I was going to Madrid, I was like, right, let's find a football club in the Madrid area that I can play for whilst I'm there. So that's kind of the process that started.
Because as well, I mean, even within that decision, you don't speak Spanish, or you didn't at that point, did you? But your girlfriend did, is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, so even that decision of going, right, there's a link between Loughborough and Madrid, there's a whole language barrier and everything else to get over before you can even start studying abroad. Right, Connor, I'm going to take you out of it and then I'm going to bring you back in. See if... Right, hopefully now, kick Connor out, and I'm going to try and get him back in, and hopefully his Wi-Fi is a little bit better. Request if you can again, Connor, if you can hear me, because I might not be able to find you. Where are you in the list? We were just getting to the meaty part as well. This is the really interesting part of Conor's. There he is. Right. I've requested Conor in. It's connecting.
Hi, Andy.
Right, let's see if it's a little bit better.
I've moved to above the Wi-Fi router, sitting next to the radiator, so hopefully it'll help.
Hopefully the radiator's off, because it's quite warm tonight as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
I was just saying, because you didn't speak Spanish at that time,
No.
but your girlfriend did. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
But yet you're the one who's going to go and study abroad in Spain.
I don't think I really clocked onto the fact that that would be an issue. I think that kind of escaped my mind. Once I get a team, once I was in the process of trying to get a team, I realised how important that would be.
So what happened? Did you start Spanish lessons? Were you coached by your girlfriend? How did it work? Yeah, I've got you.
Well, once I kind of realised that I needed to speak Spanish, I think Frankie definitely helped in the beginning when we were trying to find a team. She would do a lot of the talking. We were driving around clubs trying to find a team, and she would talk to the managers, she would talk to the coaches. But once I was settled in Spain and I had a club, I did take Spanish lessons, and it's a lot easier to pick up once you're surrounded by the language. So in that sense, it came a bit quicker.
Okay, so going back to then, you're just about to get on your flight across. You've emailed people. First of all, you've researched everyone, and you've got a large spreadsheet. You've got 48 clubs, I think it was, within an hour's drive of Madrid, where you're going to be studying.
Yeah.
And then you're emailing people, you're calling people, you're writing to people, and you're not getting anything back. So then,
well, I think at that. Sorry, go on.
Go on. No. Go on.
Yeah. So I didn't get anything back, and it was getting towards July, which I knew was when pre-season would start with full-time teams. And so I kind of said, right, I said to my girlfriend, Frankie, I said, let's just book a flight to Madrid. Let's rent a car. I know all the clubs. I've made an Excel spreadsheet of every club from the first tier down to the 9th tier that are within the Madrid area. And we literally flew over to Madrid. The two of us, we hired a car. We drove around every single club. We did 4 or 5 clubs every single day, handing in letters. We put them in gold envelopes so that people would take notice of them rather than throw them away. And we'd handwritten them in Spanish, and we went around every team. We did Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Getafe, Leganes. We did all the way down to like tiny little clubs on little astroturfs in the middle of nowhere. And luckily, I ended up getting pre-season training with a club called Rayo Vallecano, who are a big club in Madrid. They've kind of bounced between La Liga and the second division for the last 10 years. And I ended up doing pre-season with them after we caught the goalkeeper coach basically in the car park and managed to kind of collar him and get him to let me in. So it was an interesting time, but quite exciting.
So just what's the reaction to people when you're going up there, you're taking your girlfriend with you and you're saying, right, I want to trial at your club?
The majority of them look at you like you're very weird and kind of try and palm you off and keep you as far out. But we were quite persistent. We were polite. We only went where we were allowed to go and where we were supposed to go. Like with the big clubs, you don't get anywhere near there. So it was a bit of a kind of more of a tourist thing, just going and having a look and dropping a letter off. But we did get invited into a lot of clubs. There were people that kind of took interest with it. But I mean, even the club that we did get with Rayo, they wouldn't have let me in if they didn't see the kind of quality that I had. I'd listed the games, the teams that I'd played with. I showed them a highlight video. They could see all the stuff, so they could see that we were legitimate. But there was a lot of strange reactions in the first place.
So you've caught a goalkeeper coach in the car park, and he said, "Right, come on in to train." I'm assuming that this is on a short-term basis. He's kind of said, "Right, come on in, 1 or 2 sessions, see what you've got."
Yeah.
How are you preparing for that?
Well, at that point, then my girlfriend had to go home. So at that point, I'm on my own, and I've basically lost my mouth because she was the only one that could speak. So I was staying in an Airbnb, in a tiny little Airbnb. It had no windows. It used to be an old shop, I think. I was in this Airbnb on my own, and I used to just turn up to training, and I'd text Frankie before I got there, and I was like, how do I say this? How do I say that? Just so that I had some words. But I ended up doing I think I did 4 weeks pre-season there. It was a time where they hadn't signed a senior keeper, so the B team keepers had moved up. They'd put me in with the B team, and then I kind of kept my place and kept training there. And then eventually I got an offer from a club called Fuenlabrada, who were in the third tier, and they wanted me to come in with the first team. They'd kind of heard, they'd got some of my letters, funnily enough, but they'd also heard that I was in at Rayo and I was doing, and Rayo weren't really looking like they were going to offer me a contract with the first team. They might have kept me on with the B team, but the opportunity to go with Fuenlabrada's first team was kind of then something that I took right at the end of the transfer window almost.
So when you say they've received a few of your letters, they'd received 4 of them, hadn't they?
Yeah.
So 2 for the manager and 2 for the coach, just in case they didn't receive them.
Yeah.
So then you've got an offer to come in to then train with the first team.
Mm.
And you're there for the season. Go on.
Yeah. No, so I went in obviously, and they took the mick out of me a little bit, the fact that they had these weird envelopes from this kind of crazy English guy. And yeah, I ended up joining the club and was their third choice keeper. But at the same time, it was very similar to, it was almost a flashback to the A-level days, because I was still studying at the university in Madrid as well. So I would train in the morning with the first team, and then in the afternoon I'd go back to the uni. Studying at the same time, but the training was brilliant. I learned a completely different style of goalkeeping, different style of football, and it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, so just talk us through what are the main differences then between your time at Macclesfield and Loughborough, and then your time in Spain? It's from a footballing perspective.
From a footballing perspective, in Spain, there's a much greater focus on the technical side of the game. So as a squad, there was a gym at the stadium, but as a squad, we'd probably do 1, maybe 2 gym sessions a week. Compare that to, especially to Loughborough, where we were almost doing 50-50 in terms of pitch and gym work. The focus in Spain was completely on the, for a session, you'd start, as cliche, but you'd get the rondos going. And over here in England, the rondos is a time to like mess around a little bit, try and nutmeg your mate, like have a bit of a laugh. Like over there, if you're in the rondo, like the rondo's the session. If you're not keeping up in the rondo, everyone will call you out. You'll look a bit of a fool. I experienced that very early on when I wasn't up to it. But the technical focus then of the team, but of the goalkeepers, I kind of went in and saw the goalkeepers very laid back. If you've seen Spanish goalkeepers, you kind of understand what I'm talking about. Very kind of lackadaisical almost in their work, sauntering about, taking a time between sets. And I was like, right, I'm going to go in and I'm going to blast them. I'm going to be faster. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be more athletic, more aggressive. And I did all that. And the keeper coach was like, well, that's great. It's brilliant that you can do it at that intensity, but your technique suffers. Your hands aren't quite right. Your positioning isn't quite right because you're rushing things. You're trying to be too aggressive. If you watch these guys, their position is spot on, their handling spot on, their footwork spot on. That's why they don't need to be aggressive. So with my game, we almost kind of built it back up and made sure that all those things were right. And then he said, if you can then add on top of that the kind of English intensity, the physicality, the speed, then you're making yourself into a proper keeper because you've got the two. So it was a great experience for me to learn the different side to the game and the different focus. From where I've played, I haven't played at Premier League club, so I'm sure.
Conor, you need to have a word with your Wi-Fi provider. We're just going to wait a second until you're back. You back?
Sorry, you're back, Andy.
Yeah, I was just saying you need to have a word with your Wi-Fi provider. Got loads of questions that have come in. I'm just going to have a quick look. Are you back? There you are. Right, you look perfect. I was going to say, I can see you. You're in focus. Can you hear me all right? That's the next thing.
You talk and I talk as soon as we're going to get... No, I can't hear you. I can see your mouth moving. Ukulele 99's made a good little comment like that. Connor, I'm going to try and take you out of it and then put you back into it again, see if that helps. That seemed to help on the last time, so let's try that again. O'Keefe for the second time, and we're going to try again. Get him out. I have done. T. Stevens, right, let's get him back in. There you are. Get you back in. Dream 3 teams to play for, Will Bateman. Good question. Who's your favourite goalkeeper? I should have asked him that at the beginning, but I didn't. My hair's terrible, isn't it? Right. Connor, hopefully your Wi-Fi is sorted. He's going to come in. Hi, Isaac. Reed _1. It's connecting to Connor, wherever he is. Connor, if your Wi-Fi is not good, maybe try 4G. See what the comments coming in. Loads of hearts that were coming up before. Brilliant. GKAYY.24 said, Andy, would you say the S1 originals are durable? The S1 originals are negative cut, so they do actually wear a little quicker than, say, flat palms. But for 25, 26 quid, I think they're a good glove. And that's what I wear. Right. Let's try again, Connor. I did just add you in. It said it was connecting. Let's try one more time. Right, have you moved again?
Moved again. Third time lucky, I hope.
Third time lucky. I was saying you need to have a word with your Wi-Fi provider.
I'm in the sticks. I haven't even got 4G to help. It's like not good at all.
It's not a good advert for Macclesfield.
No, not at all.
So you're just talking about the differences between Spanish goalkeeping and English goalkeeping.
Yeah.
So have you felt as a goalkeeper that you're better for that experience?
100%. I learned things that I was never taught. It was a new side to goalkeeping that I hadn't seen, and that just added to my game. It was huge for me in terms of leveling up. It was very, very valuable.
So, and then as part of your time at this club, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, but you were part of the matchday squad that played away at Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Go on, talk us through that experience.
Well, again, it was unbelievable. So the team, Fuenlabrada, who I was with, they were doing very well in the league, and we were doing very well in the cup as well. So the Copa del Rey. And one day we got through kind of the preliminary rounds, and we were almost into what is the equivalent of like the third round of the FA Cup. So when the big guys come in, and we knew that we had a chance of drawing one of the big teams. We came back in from training. We sat in the press lounge. There was press from everywhere there, cameras everywhere, and we watched the draw for the cup. And they ended up pulling Real Madrid out the hat, and everyone just went absolutely bonkers. There's a video on my YouTube channel which shows that kind of moment when we saw who we were going to get, and everyone went absolutely crazy because in the Copa del Rey you play them home and away. So there wasn't any question we were going to go and play against them at the Bernabeu. So we had them at home first. We lost 2-0, which was a little bit of a robbery. We had 2 very dodgy penalty calls given against us. And apart from that, we played very, very well. And people, I mean, the team that played that day had Marcos Llorente, Lucas Vasquez, Kiko Casilla. It was a second string team, but still some huge names playing.
Kiko Casilla, he's at Leeds now, isn't he? So
yeah, Nacho and people like that. And then we went about a month later to play them at the Bernabeu, and it was a spell when Real Madrid were really struggling. They'd had some bad results in the league, and we went to play them at the Bernabeu. And I mean, for me, I didn't play the game, but I was in the matchday squad, so I travelled on the bus. Like kind of pull it is what you see on a Champions League night when you see the bus go into the Bernabeu and the players get off and the camera following, and then suddenly that was me, and it was mad. You walk off the bus and like the camera's there, you go through the double doors and Raul's there to welcome you, You go into the changing room, put your stuff down. You see Zinedine Zidane with the team, and in that team that played against us that night, Keylor Navas was playing. Gareth Bale was on the bench, and like it was just unbelievable to be kind of on the pitch at the Bernabeu before the game, and the team that you're a part of is then playing against that team. It was one of the best experiences of my life, not just football. So yeah, it was incredible, and we did really, really well. We drew against them 2-2 in that game, and they had to bring on Bale, who managed to get 2 assists, and it was a brilliant result and a brilliant performance, and a night that I would never forget.
Did you manage to get a memento?
I got a picture with Gareth Bale, which was very cool. I think he was a little bit pissed off because I think he'd done his ankle again at the end of the game, so he came like rushing back down the tunnel, and I was there, and I was like, Gareth, I'm from Britain as well. Do you mind having a photo? And he kind of gave me a weird look, and he was like, yeah, go on then. So I ended up getting a picture with him at the end. But yeah, it was a very cool experience.
Yeah, phenomenal. So your time in Spain came to an end. And you come back to Loughborough.
Yeah.
Was that a bit of a come down?
A little bit. I wanted to stay. I spoke to kind of my head of my course, and I asked if there was any opportunity for me to kind of do my last year distance learning or whatever, but it wouldn't have worked, and the only way they said that was to transfer unis and things like that. And I thought, I've done 3 years of my 4-year course. It would be silly for me to kind of throw that away right at the end. So I went back to Loughborough, like you say, and finished off my degree, went back playing with the Loughborough team again. So it was a little bit of a change, but I really enjoyed that last year as well.
And then talk to us then, because your next move after Loughborough was then to Gibraltar. So how did that come about, and why Gibraltar?
Well, again, I came out of Loughborough, so I graduated last July 2019. And my aim was, having finished Loughborough, I wanted to go back into full-time football. That was kind of always my plan, almost. And I got to the end of Loughborough, and I didn't have an agent. I kind of was talking to some clubs and trying to find something, and nothing really fitted. And then an opportunity came to go to Gibraltar from some people that I'd been talking to. Someone had kind of joined ownership of the club, and they were trying to set up a new club, and they told me about the project and the fact that in Gibraltar, the top 3 teams qualify for European football. So if you win the league, you get into the Champions League. If you come second or win the cup, you get into the Europa League. And for a kind of very small, very, very small country and a very small league, it seemed like a very good opportunity for me to go and try and be a part of that, and to get into European football straight after coming out of university. So I kind of was, I went for it. Again, it was a new place, a new country, a new league, but I'd had the experience of doing that in Spain. I wasn't kind of worried about stepping out my comfort zone. So I went and played for a team called Europa Point in the Gibraltar National League.
So did the opportunity to go back to Spain at all ever arise?
Some. In the meantime, whilst I've been in my final year at Loughborough, when Loughborough got promoted, so they were promoted to the 2nd division. And at that point, obviously, there's a big revamp in squad. There's a big difference between the 3rd division and 2nd division in Spain.
Right.
One of the keepers stayed, but one had left. I'd obviously left, and they brought in kind of a new manager, a new squad. So I didn't really, unfortunately, have the opportunity to go back. There was some in terms of kind of 3rd or 4th tier Spanish football. But I think the opportunity to try and get the European football at Gibraltar was something that I got quite excited by, and something that I wanted to try and do. So that's where I ended up going.
Because as part of your time in Gibraltar as well, you were a January transfer window signing as well for Bruno Magpies, right? So you stayed in Gibraltar, but you went from a club to a different club. Yeah,
so it's a strange league. So the league was initially supposed to be 16 teams, but for various reasons, 4 teams ended up not starting the league. So the league only started with 12 teams. which was, I mean, 3 out of 12 to get European football.
Yeah.
Not
I mean,
bad
we
odds.
both did maths A-levels, so we should be able
Yeah,
to work out how
you'd
you
take
counted
that.
on that. Yeah.
You'd take that. So the team that I signed with, Europa Point, um, it was an interesting time. They basically built the squad from nothing in about a month, and it kind of told in our results and on the pitch. We ended up having a squad where we didn't actually have a defender in the team. So we had kind of midfielders playing across the back four. There was a rule in Gibraltar that you needed 4 Gibraltarian players on the pitch at any time. And we had a severe lack of Gibraltarian players. So there was games where a Gibraltarian player would be injured and we couldn't take him off because we didn't have another one on the bench and things like that. It was some of the stories which I will tell one day were just unbelievable from that kind of 6 months, but really good fun, very interesting, but not exactly what you want when you're trying to get European football. But the benefit of it was I was very, very busy. So I ended up having a really, really good 6 months where I performed really well because every single game, it was kind of like we were backs to the wall a bit and we had to do a lot of defending. And we ended up getting the 6th best defence in the league when we didn't have any defenders. So that was a very good team effort. And I kind of benefited from that with some kind of recognition within the league and other teams. And
you were in quite a few team of the weeks, weren't you? And you got some...
Yeah, I'd had some team of the weeks and I'd been playing really well. And in the January, what happened with the Gibraltar League was at Christmas, the top 6 split from the bottom 6. So it formed 2 separate leagues. So then if you wanted any chance of playing European football, you needed to be in that top 6 at Christmas. And at Europa Point, we didn't manage to get the top 6. So then I knew from kind of my point of view, I had a club called FC Bruno's Magpies who came in for me and offered me a contract in the January, and they were in the top 6. And my aim was still to try and get that European football spot. So it was a really good opportunity for me, and Europa Point agreed and they let me go, and I ended up going to Bruno's Magpies for the second half of the season. So yeah, it was an interesting January.
Yeah. So, and where were Bruno Magpies at the end of the season then when he got curtailed?
We were 5th when the season was suspended originally. In the January, we brought in loads of new players. There was a new management team. We didn't really settle as quickly as I think the club would have hoped. And we were 5th, and there was maybe an opportunity to try and push for that 3rd spot. But yeah, eventually, because of kind of unforeseen circumstances, the league ended up being suspended and then ultimately cancelled.
Yeah, so you were living in Spain at the time, but travelling into Gibraltar.
Yeah.
I spent, I think, maybe a day or 2 in Gibraltar, and it's an interesting place.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, and then you've got Spain the other side, and then suddenly when you get to Spain the other side, you hit Spanish countryside.
Yeah.
Gibraltar and Spanish countryside.
Yeah.
I mean, how was that culturally and both, living and all those sorts of arrangements for you?
Well, it was very interesting in the first place because the first month I was there, I was in a house. I was on trial basically. So I was in a house with trialists from all over Europe, and we were all in a house in Spain, and we were trying to get into this team. And there's another video on my YouTube channel kind of showing that side to it, and that threw up some interesting stories. But I was of the foreign lads, I was the only one that could speak Spanish. So I ended up being pretty much a translator for everybody. Right. Due to my time in Spain, I could speak Spanish, and in Gibraltar, the teams were kind of split almost in thirds. You had a third Spanish lad, a third Spanish lads, a third Gibraltarian lads, and then a third kind of just internationals. And Gibraltarian people speak within the same sentence between English and Spanish. It's a very kind of interesting language and interesting dialect, and I was kind of the pin between all of that for the international lads. So I did a lot of translating in the beginning, but Gibraltar as a place is amazing, and if you've ever been, you kind of go through the border and then you have to literally drive across the runway for the airport to get into Gibraltar. Like there's red buses, red telephone boxes, like the main road's called Winston Churchill Avenue. Like it's very odd to see that when you're in Spain 10 minutes before. And the stadium as well, the Victoria Stadium, behind one goal you have the kind of very iconic Rock of Gibraltar, which is an amazing view. And then behind the other goal, you've got the airport, so you can be taking a goal kick, and you got a Thomas Cook jet landing behind you. So it's a very interesting place. Lots of interesting stories, but I enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, was that your home pitch as well? Because that's the international pitch, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's only one stadium, so every team
is
in
there?
that league played on that stadium. So whether you were home or away, every game was on that stadium. So it was, again, very weird, but quite cool.
And what's the standard of football like there then?
Very mixed. So you've got lads who have played Football League, you've got lads who have played Champions League, Europa League, and then you've got some lads who, I mean, at Europa Point, we had, for our kind of some of our Gibraltarian players, you'd had lads that had only played futsal before, hadn't played 11-a-side football. So like you have a very kind of varied mix of players. And I think in terms of the league, you have the top 3 teams who are consistently in European football, have very big budgets, can afford the best players, and then you have some teams that have budgets smaller than some of our Sunday league teams or semi-pro teams. So it's very, very mixed, but there are some very, very good players there.
And then, I mean, this might be kind of leading on from that in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's your standard of living like as a footballer in the UK versus in Spain when you were there and now in Gibraltar? Because I think this is a side of football that a lot of people don't see. Is kind of this whole differences. They see football and then automatically certain pictures come to mind, when that's not always the case, is it?
No, I wish it was, but it's not. I think from my experience, I mean, mine has been a very interesting road, but I think people would be surprised at some of the money that lads make trying to play football as a career, especially when you're not in the top leagues. I mean, in Gibraltar, don't get me wrong, there were lads on some very good money, but it was with the top teams and they were established international players. For lads who are just there to try and get a contract, it can be very, very small amounts of money. It can be a lot less than you would earn as a semi-pro team here in the UK. So I've got a lot of respect for people that try and make it a full-time career and try and graft their way through and get higher and higher. And it's what I'm trying to do, but it can be very difficult at times. I was very fortunate that I was living with my girlfriend. She was working out there as well. So we were able to share kind of basically rent and food and that kind of thing. And like I said to you, I've always tried to do other things on the side to help with my football. But we were just about getting by, we'll put it that way.
Nice little segue into YouTube.
Yeah.
Although I haven't finished on the whole football bit just yet.
Yeah, that's all right.
You've got your YouTube channel and you do weekly vlogs, keeping goals.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
It was when I went to Spain initially, so about 3 years ago. I kind of was doing the very unusual driving around clubs, handing in envelopes, trying to get a club. And I thought, if I was a kid, I'd love to see this. I'd love to see a footballer going abroad and trying to play. And I mean, we've all seen like the Ronaldo film or the Conor McGregor film, and it's amazing to see the story, but you know that they make it. And kind of my concept was keeping goals was to create a documentation of a career where neither myself nor the audience know where we're going or what's going to happen. And they find out at the exact same time as me, and they see when I'm in team of the week and man of the match, but they also see when I'm injured or I'm in bad form. And it's just an honest documentation of my attempt at trying to create a career within football. So that was kind of how it started. It started in Spain. I started it with my housemate, Johnny, who is a very talented videographer and editor, and we still work together on it. And so coming back to Loughborough, we were in the same house. We kind of upped the level and the consistency, and it's continued into kind of, we've done it season by season almost, and season 3 was in Gibraltar, and it's still going on now. So we try and do it every Sunday, 1 p.m. if anyone's interested.
Nice, good little segue in there. But I mean, the time has actually just come up here. I've never got to the timing point where it says it's an hour, we're going to kick you out, but we've got 55 seconds remaining now. So I'm going to end this live now and then start another one.
All right, sounds perfect.
Right. Keeping goals, you were just talking about that. So it's a Sunday, every Sunday, 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Now, I really like it. I try and watch as many as I can. So I thoroughly recommend it to everyone else who's watching it as well. within this. I'll try and comment on there as well.
Yeah, I often see you in there. I really appreciate it. I mean, even talking back to when we played each other, I remember going up to you after the game and asking about all the kind of stuff that you'd done and how successful you'd been at it, because I was doing keeping goals at that point and it was very young, but I knew that I could learn a lot from you and how you'd done it. So I've always been very keen to ask you questions and ask your advice. So you've helped a lot with it.
Well, I mean, this is where I think we come from two different backgrounds. Is that I was very lucky with my position, and I kind of not necessarily got forced into a position, but because of hashtag, then hashtag came with a lot of additional benefits, and part of that was a social media following. I mean, out of nowhere, Spencer kind of said to me, "Have you got an Instagram?" I said no. He said, "Right, start one." I put one picture up, and then suddenly you get a number of followers off the back of that without actually doing a lot of work. And now, whereas you've built this up from the ground up. So yeah, hats off to you for that, and the hard work that goes into it. And it's a really good story, and it's a really good good insight into your life and wanting to be a professional footballer. One of the questions actually that's come in, which I'm trying to find out, it's from Alex Ford _1 asked this question. He said, "Do you think YouTube has actually helped you in your professional football career?"
It's been something I've had to balance very carefully, because having been part of professional football before this, I mean, before I went to Loughborough, I didn't have an Instagram account, and I think a lot of people here will know it, but I was a big fan of Gary Vee, and I watched a lot of his content, and I learned a lot of lessons from him, and I saw it as a very valuable tool. But I also knew within football, it was something which could be seen, especially from the kind of old school group, as something that was a bit self-centered or not putting the team first, and it's something that I've had to balance quite carefully to try and make sure that people don't see it as that, because I've always wanted it to just be an honest documentation of a journey where I try and share what I've learned and help other people with their own paths. So there's been times where I obviously have to be very conscious of it, and I can't just take a camera into every team meeting and every training session and things like that. I've had to be careful with how I've balanced it, but overall I feel it has helped my career, because first and foremost, it's built up an audience who see me play football every week. They see what I can do playing in goal, they see my game highlights, they see me training, they see what I'm like as a person, as a teammate. So you get to a position like I'm in now, where suddenly you're looking for a new team, and you've got a much wider audience of people that can possibly help you to do that. Even now in this last week or so, the amount of help I've had from people that I've never met in terms of trying to find a new team has been overwhelming. So it can help a lot with football, but I think you have to be very careful with how you manage it to make sure that you do it in a professional way that helps other people and isn't seen as just a self-serving tool. It's something that hopefully can raise everyone.
Yeah, but I think I mean, you say that, I 100% agree with you in what you're saying, but it's very much, I think, a testament to you and your character and your person, because YouTube and your videos are very personal, and your personality comes out with that. So when you're talking about, it shows what I'm like as a teammate and whatnot, well, that's obviously admirable characteristics that you have within your personality that other people want to be part of and pull that in. And that's part of the connection of social media.
I think so. But I mean, even from that world, you know what it's like, it could be very easy for me to focus on views and focus on likes and to change my character in order to do so, and to create a certain type of content in order to solely prioritize building a massive brand and building a lot of revenue. But that would massively affect my football, and my football is my one primary focus. So, I mean, it's taken 3 years to get to where we are now. And I mean, brilliant. We've got 30,000 people on YouTube. It's amazing. But you see some who have got huge numbers, but they're not being honest with who they are as an individual, who they are as a goalkeeper, and it's solely to just generate numbers and generate revenue. So it could have been easy to go down that path and just see it as a solely money-making item. But I think playing the long game, and it has been a long game, but playing the long game of being honest, being just documenting who you are, trying to help people, trying to bring value with it, has ultimately put me in a position where I can use it at the same time as football, and I haven't had to choose between one of the two, and it hasn't jeopardized my football career. So that was kind of a move that if I'd been a bit younger, maybe I might have made a different decision, and it could have quite badly affected my football.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have this conversation with people asking me this question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you this question, and because you have a foot in both camps. But what do you think about the social media space for goalkeepers at the moment?
Well, it's quite a popular topic at the minute, I think, in terms of all the comments on my thing. But I think from like what I said, I think as long as you as a viewer understand what you're getting from different people, there's a market for everyone. If you want to be entertained, if you want to just have 5 seconds of enjoying something or thinking something looks amazing, it's the same with the F2. Like, it's brilliant. I love their videos. You see it, you think, wow, that's incredible that you can do that. But if you're looking for something which is informative and bringing realistic value, you just need to change where you're sourcing that information from. It's the same as any type of media, be that music or film or TV. You watch different things for different purposes. So I think as long as you as a consumer understand what you're getting from different people and you don't confuse it, then there's space for everybody. But I think it's important to make those distinctions.
I think that's a really good point, and that's kind of the same viewpoint I take on things. However, that distinction is not always there.
No.
And that causes problems, I think.
Yeah,
it causes a certain viewpoint. And I think there's a certain responsibility on creators, especially those who sit in that entertainment space, in order to ensure that whatever they're doing is safe, for one. It's not going to cause anyone harm. Is it going to be something that is replicatable in other scenarios? And I don't think that's quite a fine line with certain and
people have got it wrong. People have got it wrong. But I agree. I think it is important to make sure you're very clear in what you do, and also recognizing who your audience are. So I know from my analytics that a lot of my audience are my age. They are older goalkeepers, but I know that for other goalkeepers, they have a lot of younger kids who are very easily impressionable in all this. And you have to then have an extra responsibility that you're making sure that they're safe in what they're doing and they're not trying to do something too ridiculous and they're not putting themselves at harm. So, I mean, even with my content, I wouldn't put out something which I would never do as a goalkeeper. I only put out something that I know is going to help me in my aim of being a professional goalkeeper. So if other people have that aim, it'll help them too. But yeah, I think it's important to have that responsibility for your audience, definitely.
Yeah, and given your background and the knowledge and the people that you've worked with and whatnot, then the content that you're going to be putting out there in terms of how to improve, because you're doing it, is going to naturally help other people.
Yeah, it brings that kind of element of validation to it, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so moving away from YouTube a little bit, you're in the a situation at the moment. You don't have a club. So what's the next step for you? Where are you at?
I wish I knew. I think at the moment, it's football in general is going to take a massive hit, and I think people don't see it yet because at the very top level, things almost look like it's back to normal. Premier League's coming back, Bundesliga's back, La Liga's back. But football runs a lot deeper than that, and I think there's going to be some very severe ramifications for what's going on. So, unfortunately, at this moment in time, I'm not joining a Premier League team or a Bundesliga team or a Championship team. Not yet. But for the teams that I would be looking to join, there's going to be a very severe impact in the fact that fans aren't allowed to attend games in terms of the revenue for clubs to run and create a budget and things like that. There's obviously the in-place restrictions from government about when football can return at those levels. So for someone like myself, who obviously main source of income is playing football, it can be that almost instead of returning to pre-season training on July 1st, like it's always been, suddenly you're looking at a season beginning in October, maybe even January, and that's a long period of time between them. So it's a very uncertain period, but I've kind of spoke about the fact that all I can do, I can't control when football comes back. I can't control who will offer me a contract. I can't control those opportunities. All I can control is on the training side, making sure I'm physically, technically, mentally improving all the time and ready for an opportunity if and when it comes. And also pushing on as many doors as I possibly can and trying to create an opportunity for myself. And making that distinction between what I can and can't control is something that I've learned over time, and it helps me in a situation like this.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but I've just had a great question here actually from Nicholas official_9. It touches on the YouTube element. Does anyone ever recognise you from YouTube that you played against?
I don't know if from a game. I think in Gibraltar people knew who I was because Gibraltar is a very small league. It would have got out very quickly. The fact that there was some English guy talking on YouTube about everything, and people would have found out about it. But I think people do know. I think when I've been on different like trial days or trial games or trials at clubs, people have recognised me, or in a training at different places. And it's quite interesting. I think the majority, I've been very fortunate. The majority of feedback I got and everything is very positive, and people who I do meet seem to really enjoy the content, and I've only had positive experiences from me meeting people that do recognise it. But it's still quite an odd experience when someone does.
Yeah, so, I mean, going back in, I mean, we just jumped a little bit back and forth, but I thought that was a good question to ask.
Yeah.
Now, another question on here, which kind of links into what was going to be my next question from ALZ 23. Is there any chance you're going back to Bruno's Magpies or even to Gibraltar? And then my question was going to be, what is your next step? Where do you want to go? What are you looking for? Are you concentrating on somewhere, a certain geography, or is it a case of whatever comes in, I'm going to just check out? And
I mean, yeah, I mean, from my experience so far, I've understood that when I step out my comfort zone to somewhere that I never think that I would be able to go, can't speak the language, have no contacts, I still create a really good career path. So from that perspective, it means that now I'm not afraid of going anywhere. If someone was to ring from Indonesia or America or South America or Australia, I'd be quite happy to go, as long as it's an opportunity where I can see myself developing as a footballer and improving as a goalkeeper. Then that's perfect, because as long as I'm getting better, I know that whatever I want to achieve will end up coming to me. If I become the best goalkeeper I can possibly be, I'll get where I want to go. So as long as it's somewhere where I can keep developing, with Gibraltar, that's also the case. I mean, again, with Gibraltar, they don't know when the season's getting back up and running, but there is the opportunity to possibly go back and play in Gibraltar. And I still feel like, in terms of my performances, I still feel like, because the second half of the season was cut short, I didn't have that many games with FC Bruno's Magpies. There's still things that I would want to do and achieve over there. But at the same time, in this position, you want to assess the opportunities that come in and find the one where you can progress the most and develop the most and improve the most. So I would be willing to listen to whoever would be interested in me coming, and then my decision would be based on those factors.
See, that's interesting, because you've got a long-term girlfriend that you've known since, is it primary school or secondary school?
Yeah, we've known each other since we were probably 6 or 7.
Now, I know this is kind of creeping into personal life and whatnot, so feel free to say I'm not answering that or not. But your relationship there, there's obviously some Spanish link there. She speaks Spanish and then lived in Spain and into Gibraltar.
Yeah.
And then she was working across there. That's obviously a decision that's got to be taken into consideration. I think that's a lot of other things that people don't necessarily see about the life of a footballer, is the people who are then supporting the football and the family environment around that.
Yeah.
So if you then turn around and go, I'm going to nip off to, I know one of the comments said, come play in India, I think. Yeah. Are you going to be supported in that way? Is that a decision that is actually on the table, or is that actually, that might be a step too far?
I mean, Frankie is a huge supporter of what I do, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without her. Like you say, she's upped her life and moved with me last season and come to Spain, and she just finished university too. I'm sure she would have had things that she wanted to go and do and go and try. But the way our kind of relationship is, we've always wanted to do it together as a team, and she's fully supportive of me with my decisions. And I know that she's always said to me that she would never stand in the way of an opportunity that would help both of us, but also within myself. It's not, you can't be just selfish and solely think of your own goals and aspirations and jeopardize everyone else's lives and dreams and careers. So again, in part of my decision-making process, it's what's best for us as a two. So, but I know whatever comes, she would be very supportive, and we've tried to build lives that can move with us. So, I mean, she set up a kind of tutoring business where she teaches language almost freelance over Skype, and I've obviously set up the YouTube stuff and other business things, and we're trying to create a lifestyle for the both of us where we are able to move around, and we're able to do that wherever that goes. And there will come a time where she'll want to settle down. She won't want to kind of move around for the rest of her life, but Same with me. But I think in terms of right now, we kind of see these years where we don't have a mortgage, we don't have a family, we don't have things holding us back, where if we get the opportunity to travel the world doing the careers that we do, it's a great adventure and something which we're kind of quite excited to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a book, it's got to be a couple of years ago now, and I cannot remember the name of this goalkeeper, but he's a German goalkeeper. I'm going to say it was
Lutz Fanch, yeah. Fanch Steel or someone like that, yeah.
So he's the goalkeeper for people who are in it. He's played on every single continent. You know, I can see something in 10, 15 years time of the Conor O'Keefe diaries.
Yeah, it was a great story. He's had a very, very interesting career.
Yeah, well, you never know.
Yeah.
So that kind of covers from where you started. And for people who have just come in as part one, if you wanted to sit down for an hour already, we've been at this for a while. Got to apologise for keeping you for so long, actually.
No,
I've enjoyed it. 30, 40 minutes. We're into about an hour and 20 so far. There's quite a few questions that have come in that I get asked as well, which I kind of find sometimes a little bit difficult to answer and whatnot, but you're in a good position to answer.
Yeah.
One of them is about height and goalkeepers. So are you 5'11" or 6 foot?
6 foot, the party line.
6 foot just.
Yeah, on a good morning.
See, I'm 5'11" and a half.
Yeah.
So 6 foot in short. So what do you think about height and goalkeepers?
I think it's changing. I think you can see that the general trend is moving downwards. I think my youth career, I was always told that I wouldn't be a professional because I wasn't tall enough. I was always told that would harm me, and I had opportunities. Most notably, I had a Republic of Ireland scout come and watch me when I was 15, and he said, "No, you're not big enough. You won't make it," and things like that, which really affected me a lot, especially as a younger keeper. But then I would sit down and I would watch Iker Casillas win La Ligas and Champions Leagues and World Goalkeeper of the Year at 5'11". And I think that was probably something which pushed me to go to Spain as well. And I'd see him do it, and I think, well, if he can do it, if the best goalkeeper in the world is 5'11", you can't tell me that I can't be a professional goalkeeper. It doesn't make sense. So the more you see it, you see Fabian Barthez, Victor Valdez, Claudio Bravo, Ter Stegen, Matty Ryan, even Jordan Pickford's not the biggest. The trend is moving downwards, and I think especially the way the game's going with the speed of it, if I was a manager, I wouldn't want just a huge lump that couldn't move. I mean, obviously there are a lot of big keepers that are very, very impressively agile, but I think in general, my opinion has been, if I'm the best goalkeeper, if I'm the best at taking crosses, the best at distribution, my handling is the best, my footwork's the best, the position is the best, the communication is the best. If I'm the best at everything I can possibly do, I'm going to play. And I'm going to play above someone that's 6'2" or 6'3" or 6'4" because I'm a better goalkeeper. So my kind of focus over the last probably 4 or 5 years has been, don't waste time again worrying about the things you can't control. I can't control my height. Instead, I can control the work that I put in to improve those different elements of my goalkeeping so that I'm the better goalkeeper. So that's been my focus really. And going to Spain, when I was in Spain, no one ever asked my height. No coach mentioned it. No player mentioned it. It wasn't a thing. And the fact that I went in and did what I did and was at the club that I was at, it kind of showed me, yeah, you can do this. You've got that level and that ability. If someone in England says you're too small, go find somewhere else. Go play somewhere else. It's not the end of the world. So, yeah, it's been a process of learning that mentality towards it, because it was something that affected me a lot as a kid. But that's something that I try and pass on to people that ask me that question. Yeah,
I mean, that's a great answer. And it's also a great segue into the next question I was going to ask you about mentality.
Yeah.
Something that I always found, I mean, I was in goal as a youngster. I took a big chunk in the middle where I didn't play in goal. And then I went back in goal. And I found it really difficult in terms of how much pressure there is to cope with being a goalkeeper. So at that point, I started reading more stuff about it, which kind of helped me do some things. But are there any specific techniques that you use in order to help you deal with mistakes, deal with pressure?
Lots. I mean, from kind of, I think the mental side of goalkeeping is something that's not focused on enough. If you think about our actual involvement within a game, there's probably only 3 minutes that we're in contact with the ball from 90 minutes. And the rest of that, you need to make sure that you're concentrating, you're positive, you're focused, all these mental sides of goalkeeping. And if you think how often we train physically or how often we train technically or tactically, compare that percentage of time to how often you train your mind, it's completely the wrong way up. So it's something that I've kind of tried to work on. And I mean, obviously people have different levels of it. I've worked with almost a mental coach now every week for the last 2-3 years. And we've kind of put together different tactics like positive self-talk or visualization before matches. So on the way to a match, if I'm in the car or on the bus, I'll put on a particular playlist. I'll kind of think back and visualize good games that I've had in the past, good actions that I've made. I'll visualize how this game's going to go, both positively and negatively, because there's no point me visualizing the perfect game. It's not going to happen. I need to make sure that I'll visualize, if I do a pass wrong, what am I going to do? How am I going to feel? If I take a great cross, how's it going to feel? And all these different elements of kind of the game, I'll visualize beforehand. But kind of making sure you talk to someone that understands too. I've benefited a lot from those kind of weekly conversations, just downloading how you feel as a goalkeeper, because if you can find someone that understands football or understands goalkeeping and you can talk through the feelings, then often you can come to a solution yourself just by talking about it. And that's something which people talk about for mental health in general, but as a goalkeeper we do have a lot of pressure, and I think having those regular conversations about things, you can start to build in little tactics that can help you in general.
So, I mean, if you're in a game, you make a mistake, concede a goal because of your mistake.
Yeah.
What do you do? What's the process that you follow then?
I'm not sure there's like a set tick list of things that I do. I think like anybody, I'll feel frustrated, I'll feel annoyed, I'll feel annoyed at myself that I've made a mistake, but at the same time I know that my next action could be the thing that decides the game. And so I have a very kind of set routine of after a game, however it's gone, I'll leave that evening to feel how I feel, happy about winning, sad about losing, annoyed about mistakes, and then the next day I'll come back and analyze it. So within the game I know that process is going to come. I know that I'm going to look at that mistake and learn from it. But within the game, I know I have to focus on the next action. If my head is on what's already happened, I could cost my team even more. So I just bring myself back to the process, and literally one self-taught quote that I'll say is focus on the next action, focus on the next action, focus on the next action, or something along those lines. Because as a goalkeeper, you're literally building a wall brick by brick of every action within a game. You can't look at that wall before it's been built, and you can't think about what's already happened. You just have to build it up. And then after the game, you can do your full analysis of what went wrong, what went right. But within the game, you literally just have to concentrate on those next actions.
I mean, that's some really solid advice there. And just listening to you here talk there, I kind of try and put that into me. And right, what do I do from here? What do I do? And there's definitely certain things that I can take from listening to you to help me with my game, although I'm not playing as much. So,
is there anything different that you would do?
One thing it was Cav, who was a goalkeeper at Hashtag, told me that something that one of his coaches told him. And he was saying, whatever happens in a game, if you make a mistake, then the thing, it was kind of a trigger for him to forget it, essentially, to like say, focus on the next action, was to undo his wrist strap and strap it up.
I like that.
It's gone, that's it. And that was it. And it was kind of like that, mine's gone, I'm now focused back on it.
Yeah, I like that.
And it was just something little like that was then just to switch it back on. Because I think that's something that I found quite difficult from that. It was that ability to let it go. And Bill Beswick is someone that I read a few of his books and spoke about parking the mistake. And it's right, you've made the mistake, you can't do anything about it now. Park it because you need to learn from it. Don't forget about it in total. However, you can't now let that mistake, like you say, dictate your next action.
Exactly.
So you have to come with it with a fresh mind. And that's something that I try to instigate with my game. I found it a little bit more difficult to put it in practice.
No, it can be very difficult.
But I found that very useful. And then, when Cav, I was coaching at the time, when he told about that, I was like, actually, that's quite a good thing, because as soon as you've done that, it's gone and it's forgotten. So, when it's really interesting, the certain things there that are definitely great advice, I think, for younger keepers. Now, I've got 2 questions left. So if anyone else does have any other questions, stick them in the chat, because we've kept talking for a while. Now, one of the questions is actually from a follower, _Ed_lover. Said, would you prefer a first minute penalty save or a 93rd minute penalty save?
I saw that before. I don't think it's a choice. I'd love a 93rd. As long as we win, the game, the 93rd one would feel brilliant. I mean, a penalty save is a penalty save. I'd be happy with anyone, to be honest. But yeah, I'd probably pick the 93rd one, as long as it contributed to a positive result.
Yeah, I think I'd go for the same as well. 93rd, finish on a high.
Yeah, be the hero. We've had enough of being the villains. We need a bit of glory.
Yeah. My final question, kind of one of the questions I didn't ask before, is who was your idol when you were growing up? But you've mentioned the likes of Valdez, and you've mentioned Barthez, and those guys who aren't necessarily the biggest. So I'm assuming is one of those.
I mean, I loved Casillas when I was a kid. I loved watching him. And funnily enough, now when I watch back, I scrutinise his game more in terms of his technical decisions and how he actually performed as a goalkeeper. But I think when I was younger, he symbolised something which was above his. I mean, his performances were still an elite level, and he was an unbelievable goalkeeper. But watching back now, he's a very different goalkeeper to myself, for example. But back then, he was a symbol for me that you could go on and you could do that. You didn't need to be 6'4", 6'5". You could perform and be elite at the top level as a smaller goalkeeper. So I loved him. I mean, I'm a big United fan as well, so I was a huge fan of Van der Sar, and obviously David De Gea laterally as well. But yeah, Casillas was probably my big one.
Good choices. Now, that wasn't actually my question. My question was going to be, you can have you in the training session, and you can have 3 other goalkeepers from any particular time in history. They would obviously be at their peak. So if you choose Gordon Banks, it was Gordon Banks back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Who are the 3 other goalkeepers that you're going to choose?
That's a really great question. I'd pick Buffon. And actually, I'm not the biggest Buffon fan in terms of him as a goalkeeper. I mean, I love him, but it's not someone that I rave about all the time. But I would do it just to basically probably have him as he is now. And I'd just be spending the whole session going, how did you maintain that level for that long? Like, what decisions did you make to make sure that you were playing for Juventus, for Italy, for a 20, 25-year career? And so that would be something that I'd love to kind of have the answers to. I'd love to train with. Oh, great questions. I'd love to train with Ter Stegen now. He's my favourite keeper at the moment. I think his ability on the ball with both feet is something that I absolutely love. And his role within the team, ask him how he balances that, how he learned that, how he developed that. That would be something that I'd love to see.
There's a phenomenal graphic on Twitter that I saw that I think I retweeted and mentioned just about his distribution in his last game.
Oh, I saw it. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Just a number of touches, good positioning, both feet, directions, accuracy. It was amazing to see.
And the decision making and the calmness, so he could assess, like you were saying. I love that video because they noted when the formation changed, how his decision making changed in terms of where he was playing the ball, and he could switch that without panicking. So many, if plan A doesn't go right, suddenly they're flustered, things are unsure. But you can see he's just equally as calm. He can adapt to it. That's an unbelievable skill, and I'd love to train with him and kind of poke him about all that kind of stuff. Last one. I don't know. Who would yours one be if you could have one?
The goalkeeper for me. I mean, I'm a Wolves fan, so Mike Stowell was always a goalkeeper that I watched a lot of. Yeah. He's not really well known, but I watched him week in, week out, because I was a ticket down to Wolves. But the goalkeeper of my time was Peter Schmeichel.
Yeah, I was going to say Schmeichel.
So I'd love to have just Schmeichel in there just to see. I mean, you hear a lot about his mentality being one, his personality another one, and I'd love to see how that transferred then into the way that he kept goal. So
Yeah, I think that would be a good choice.
Yeah, but that's me. That's not you.
Okay, third. Well, I think actually if I'd done a session with Schmeichel, we'd probably end up, well, I think he'd just overwhelm the session. I think he'd just absolutely dominate it and put us all in our place and make us all feel about 2 foot tall. So I'm not sure I'd want him in my session just for making me feel completely inadequate. But
Buffon might have something to say about that, though.
Yeah, Buffon's a bit more relaxed. Like, he just knows he's better. He doesn't need to show it off. He just he just knows he's at that level. I think I quite like Edison at the moment, just to learn his side volley. I'd just be like, listen, let's just stay here for 5 hours and just teach me how you hit that sidey at 6 foot for about 80 meters. So I think I'd chuck him in there as well.
Okay, I think you've made some solid choices there.
Mm.
I'll film it. I'll come down with your mate. Just the filming. We can both stand.
That'd be a cracking keeping goals episode. That'd get some views.
And then we can all play goalie wars afterwards too.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Okay. Mate, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you for an hour and a half now.
No, not at all, mate. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And thanks to everyone for watching for this. Thank you very much for that. Best of luck finding a club for the new season. We'll all be watching your Twitter and Instagram and keeping goals, keeping up to date.
I appreciate that. And once everything's loosened up as well, we'll have to meet up and do something as well. It'd be good fun to do something together.
Very well. I think someone did put in the comments earlier, you two are going to collab and play goalie ball. So it looks like
that'd be good. We'll give that a go.
Goalie balls, though, I think you might need to have some sort of scoring system to take into account the fact that you've been a professional footballer for a while, and I definitely haven't. So I think we'll have to find something out there to level it out.
Not since March. It's been a leveler.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Right. Thank you very much. Rob McKenna, lots of clapping there. Best one yet, in my opinion. There you go. You're high up in his estimations, and he watches every single one of them.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Rob.
For that. And massive thanks to you, Conor, for being part of this and chatting away for so long and sharing your experiences.
Not at all. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me, Andy, and thank you, everyone, for watching as well.